Isn't that really, really strange how that worked out? Had like 3,000 views in less than an hour. Had like 90, almost 100 viewers at the time. Simply talking about the truth. I mean, it's like it would make more sense if I was trying to tell you that dragons existed and that there are petrified dragons all over the place and the giants. Oh, we need to talk about the giants, how there were giants at one point on the earth. And if I'm talking about, the Jesuits control the world, the Illuminati controls the world, the New World Order controls the world. I see any of these things. Doesn't seem to be a problem with that. Look at your boy, looking young. Michael B. Jordan. Really interesting how that worked. And now let's see, are we going to be completely stifled this time? Can you imagine how many people were watching that and thought, what the fuck, where'd this guy go? Blah, blah, blah. He bailed. Must have got too hot for him. Oh, I said something that he went in the comments that he wasn't reading. What the hell happened? Stop spreading damaging information. To who? Who am I spreading damaging information about? What are you saying? Don't you mean I'm just spitting out lies? Aren't I just spitting out lies? If it's lies, it can't be damaging. It's just lies. It's just dumb lies that aren't true. So how would that affect anything? Why would any system or anything be so weak and fragile and incompetent that some dumbass like me spreading lies, nothing but lies, is damaging? Right? Oh yeah, you'll stop it. I'm sure you can, because you're super powerful. Do it. Do it. Shut the feed off now. Put your money where your mouth is and shut the feed off now. No? No. Matt, what's going on, man? Really interesting, don't you think? Did you see how many views we had? How big that video was? Guys, you got to like, share, and sub. You find anyone else that the system seems to be as scared of or more scared of, then you watch that guy and you share that guy and show me that guy, and then I'll watch and share that guy, and we'll go from there, right? Yes, I am. I deny the narrative that they give us. The Hall of Hoax is fake. The fuck does that have to do with anything? Who are you even talking to, you dumb fucking vampire? This is stupidity, man. And so you have to look at like what was happening. I was telling you, everybody that wanted to listen, because remember, everybody's only here because they want to be, right? You always have to remember that. Nobody is forced to be here. Every single person that's watching me is here because they want to be, and I'm the only thing that matters. They could be doing anything else right now, and they're choosing to watch me. So that should say a lot to you. It's surprising how many haters help the feed. Yeah, but have you ever seen a feed with this many haters on it? Have you ever seen anything like this? Especially somebody that's talking like I talk? There is nobody that's talking like I talk. Yeah. Of course you're paid to be here, but you already said that you were going to stop the feed. I challenged you to do so, and you don't. That's all it takes. Right? You've shown that you have no credibility, so from here on, that's what it is. No credibility. But I'm telling you guys, there's literally... There's only one video, there's only one thing that I highly suggest you guys watch. There's lots of other things out there. You know, even Alex Jones's Obama deception was a good one. It's funny how, you know, people deny that Alex Jones is a racist, but show me the Clinton deception. Show me the Trump deception. Show me the Biden deception. Show me the other videos he made that are like that one. You know, Alex Jones is a clear-cut racist. No, Alex Jones has a black guy that works for him. Of course he does. And I'm sure that black guy will tell you wonderful things. But understand what's going on here. Right? They want you seeing those videos. If you look any of those videos up on YouTube, you'll find it. A video they make almost impossible to find is called 6 Million Lies. And it just basically shows you the truth behind the Holocaust. Or let's say more truth, you know. It just gives you the thing I always liked about the conspiracy side of things is the official side of things tells you this is the narrative, don't ask questions and believe it. The conspiracy side of things will tell you, hey, did you know that the narrative also says this part? You know, they said this is the part everybody knows, but they also say this part. What do you think? Do you think that's real? Do you think that makes sense? And that's the difference. They're not telling you, like, you have to believe this or everybody's going to ostracize you and you'll lose your job and everything bad will happen to you. No, the conspiracy side of things just wants you to see the whole picture and then asks you, do you still believe the narrative after you see the whole picture? And that's what, you know, that's what so much of this is about. You know, it's like on here. If anybody can point to something that I've made up, some sort of theory that I give you guys, and there's not 100% backing for it, I'd love to know. You know, I know there's going to be people that say, Earth shape, and, you know, it's one of the reasons why I don't tend to talk about it that much. Because I believe we can't know the truth. We Goyim can't know the truth until we Goyim unite and overthrow the Jays that control our narrative and keep the truth from us. And that's what Hollywoodism is. Again, if I could get you to do anything after you leave here, if I can get you to watch anything, you'd be surprised because I'm not going to tell you to watch the Obama deception or Zeitgeist. Again, Zeitgeist was such an influential movie for me. But when Zeitgeist came out, it was because there wasn't a bunch of other information. Like, you go into Zeitgeist back in 2007 or whatever, and it's not like everybody knows the term chemtrails like they do now. It's not like everybody's heard Illuminati and crazy shit like that. Back then, you were almost like a baby. Just a baby. Trying to figure things out. Because back then it was like I see something is wrong. And every time I try to talk to somebody, they just tell me to sort of shut up and just pay attention. Don't be crazy. Don't be a conspiracy theorist. The last things you ever want to be in this world is somebody who doesn't believe in Jesus. Somebody who doesn't believe we went to the moon or doesn't believe the earth is round. And who's somebody who's a conspiracy theorist. Somebody who asks questions and doesn't just believe what the government tells them at all times. And then, you know, and so that's what all these movies end up being. They end up being little pieces of the puzzle. Dots in the Monet, you know. Where you're like, oh, I see that one dot now. Oh, now I see another dot. And eventually, you're going to get that picture of them like, you know, claws hanging out and shit. I mean, think about Borat. Do you ever wonder why Borat was allowed to be who he was? It's because he's a J. He's a J. And you know, he's not making fun of the J's. He's making fun of people who make fun of the J's, who talk about the J's. You know, that's what his purpose was. If we can make the guy that says things about the J's into some caricature, because it's coming, because people are talking about us too much, so we have to do something to sort of pull it back. And that's exactly what that was. A great proof of that is the fact that Ali G, Sacha Baron Cohen, was able to book an interview with soon-to-be President douchebag Trump. I mean, this is 20 something years ago. And of course, Trump didn't play along because he was super serious. But just think about like how much it would have taken for this no-name bullshit TV show that makes fun of everybody with this clown host to get Donald Trump in the first place. But like I say, all of the movies that you're supposed to watch, like if I were to say The Obama Deception, or I was to try to explain any of those movies to, say, you know, your grandmother or something, she would be like, oh, that's one of those conspiracy movies. I don't want to do that. I don't want to get involved in any of those conspiracies. That's where Hollywoodism stands alone. Because Hollywoodism is their movie. They made it. Written, directed, produced by, starring nothing but J's. I say it all the time. If I made the exact same movie and I just used people of color as all the stars, and we said everything word for word except when they say we'd say they. Everybody would jump all over me. You can't say, though, those are tropes. That's anti-Semitism. Those are anti-Semitic tropes. And, you know, everything's a trope. It's a trope. It's a trope. And I would just get in so much shit for making the exact same movie. Because the movie is them bragging about how they control us. They control our lives. And they used Hollywood to do it. Both East and West Coast Hollywood to do it. By controlling Hollywood, by controlling our everyday perception, what we think the family should be, how we think voting and government should be, all of it. They literally give it all to us. We just don't think that way. For some reason, we seem to think like news programs or whatever aren't propaganda, aren't completely sponsored. Again, isn't it interesting how we went back to now we're down to 20 people? We were at like 90 for a considerable amount of time and shut that feed down. Why do you think they're so scared of me? If all I'm doing is selling porky pies, then why are they so scared of it? It's funny because when you're telling the truth, like for me, there's literally nothing that could come that would affect me in a negative. Like anything you say, it just doesn't affect me. There's nothing, you know, I'm proud of my truth. I'm proud of everything, my life, even my failures and my screw ups. I'm still proud of those. Those are what made me who I am. I wish I would have done something different. But I didn't, and I'm just going to own it and move past. I'm never going to tell people, hey, don't talk about that. I'm embarrassed. Don't talk. You can't say that. You can't say those things. It's true, but you can't say it. I never do that. So ask yourself, like, why is it so many people are determined to tell me not to talk about these things? Especially considering I'm wrong, right? I mean, at this point, 24 people in the entire world, there's 8 billion people on this planet. Why would anyone care if I'm talking to 100 people, 1,000 people? Who cares? These are nothing numbers, right? What are we talking about? Supposedly there was a Banksy that showed up that has Elon Musk pulling a mask, or has Hitler pulling an Elon Musk mask off. And this doofus I know posted that. And it was like, you think this is real? And somebody said, Elon Musk wasn't even alive back then. Why would somebody like that pull an Elon Musk mask off? And I was just like, how are people that stupid? You don't understand what an analogy is? You don't understand like what symbolism is? Like, you're that stupid that you take this as a literal thing, that literally Hitler would be underneath an Elon Musk mask? Do you know how stupid that is? They're both J actors anyway. They're just actors. I mean, it's just fucking crazy, man. I mean, it's okay. So again, it's like these dumbasses that can't come up with anything, so they start calling me RVD. Is that supposed to be bad? RVD was awesome. Dude was a fucking, goof. His character was a goof. But RVD would kick the shit out of everyone on here. RVD's rich. He's powerful. He's intelligent. Yeah. Oh, ow, don't call me that. Because you have nothing else you can say. Why do they so desperately want me to not talk about Hollywoodism? They made Hollywoodism. They should be proud that some dumb goyim is pushing their movie for them. Why aren't they coming through in droves being like, yes, go watch our movie. Oh, it's such a great movie. It tells you our story of how we came from total oppression to total success. Like anybody can do. It's the American dream. Why don't they come on here like that? I mean, it's just goofy. And remember, these are the same profiles day after day. They have nothing going on in their world. It's Saturday morning at 8:30 when I first started, and they are here. And they'll be here as long as I'm here, and they'll just say stupid shit instead of trying to make me look bad or debunk anything I'm saying or get attention the right way. It's just this. What does that tell you? My first video, I showed you that according to history, they don't know what happened to all the dead bodies throughout history. Great war battles and shit like that. We just don't know. There's a definite gap in the historical narrative or in the historical memory when it comes to that particular issue. And you guys are all just okay with that. Like it's crazy to me to think that what we're told is that when the white man invaded the Americas, there were as many as 100 million natives that lived here. And now these were people who could build crazy fucking huge cities, pyramids, all these incredible designs, fountains and Machu Picchus and wonder how many other Machu Picchus there are. We just don't get told about them. But they were capable of doing all of this shit. And luckily for the white man, whoever programmed these people told them that if Kublai Khan comes, which is a white man from the east in a ship, that he is your god. And that if the white man ever comes, then you're to swim out to the ship with gifts and worship this man. That's what we're told. That's how they cover for this idea that, are we supposed to believe that a ship or two full of white people took over an entire continent, hundreds of millions of people? That's the narrative we have to believe because they had God behind them? And they somehow knew about, they were giving out blankets with small, how did they know? That's germ warfare. Are we saying they knew about germs back then? Because we didn't know about germs back then. But it's amazingly stupid narrative. But what we're told, 100,000 natives were here. Then white people came and they just spread like cancer, having 10, 20, 30 children, blah, just stupid fucking narratives, right? And they somehow brought black people here from Africa, however many millions they say. At one point I read it was 50 million, which doesn't even make sense mathematically. But we're supposed to believe that somehow, once they figured out America was here, then they knew how to go from Africa to here, taking what is now known as the hurricane routes. They took the same routes the hurricanes take from forming in, off the coast of Africa up to the United States. They just happened to take those routes, never encountering hurricanes, because, again, if you look up the historical record when it comes to hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, shit like that, it's surprisingly sparse. Don't know. I have no idea.
So hard.
I have no idea. I wish I didn't. I wish, not that I wish I didn't have my kids,
Right.
because, no, I mean, because, you could say, oh, well, your kids, I don't want anything to happen to them. I just wish I never did it to begin with.
Right, because it's so much worry and stress.
Worry, stress, fear, work, instead of just living your life and enjoying it and doing you, and it's crazy. Anyway, yeah. But that the whole they swam out to the white man, and that they were somehow not able to take them over. And again, the white man used the hurricane routes, and I'm telling you, look it up. There's not a lot of accounts of hurricanes and shit throughout history. You think there is. You're going to think there is, but there's not. And what we're to believe then is that these people who thought everything was a sign of God, an act of God, blah, 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 when it came to like hurricanes and tornadoes and shit, they just must have not felt like writing it down. Like it's crazy. But so it's at least 100 million natives, plus the white people that spread like cancer, plus the black people they brought in and then forced them to breed like crazy. We're talking about billions and billions of people that have probably lived in the United States since white man came here, at least according to the narrative. Well, where the fuck are all those bodies at? They just don't exist. And when you take it even deeper, my wife brought this up one day. She's like, what about the teeth? I mean, we're talking about 400, 500 years ago. We still find supposedly Neanderthal settlements that are pretty well preserved and whatnot.
We find all kinds of shark teeth and shit in the ocean.
Right.
Why wouldn't we find teeth from millions of people on land?
Well, and that's it. Have you ever been digging outside in the garden, out in the woods somewhere, and found a human tooth? No.
I dug all through our yard in Birmingham, looking for rocks.
Not a fucking.
We've had a bunch of fossils, but never any human teeth.
But even as a kid, if you would have ever found a tooth that would stand out to you, you'd have been like, "Oh my god, a tooth!" Like, yeah. It would be something that. And as kids,
all the time.
Always. And out in woods that weren't developed yet and all that stuff. We were out digging in there, Never ever found teeth.
Nope.
And every adult has 32 adult teeth and 20 4 or something baby teeth. I don't remember what it is. You gotta pull the teeth out before you feed them to the pigs because the teeth can't be digested because teeth last forever. So where is all the evidence of the billions of people that had to be here beforehand? You can find, there are cemeteries. There are cemeteries that exist all over that are supposedly from the 1700s and shit like that. And there'll be like this tiny little cemetery that always, of course, has like the acorns and the weird the obelisks and the weird symbolism. But hey, never mind all that.
Oh, the cemetery we went to for Samhain and cleaned it up and everything. That shit was cool as fuck. There was all kinds of old shit there. It was cool as fuck.
For what? I mean, it's such a stupid practice. Such an arrogant practice. You know, to think that this piece of land now has to be occupied by me forever. And here's my little claim, my little homestead. And, you know, I mean, how many generations after you before people stop going to your grave? I know my great-grandparents, I don't know. I don't know anybody that goes to, maybe they do, but none of the family even lives here. I know my dad never goes. You know, you're given these crazy bullshit narratives like we talked about in the first video, in part 1, the whole Gettysburg narrative and how stupid it all is. But see, we're given that same narrative throughout all of history. You know, the Maccabees, the reason why Hanukkah is celebrated, right, is because around 2,000 years ago, it was like a few hundred minus 100 years ago. Well, a few into the minus century. So it was like minus 232 or some shit like that. The Jays, they like to paint the picture that their shit had been outlawed, but it hadn't. And they give 3 reasons, amongst many other things it says, but the 3 reasons that they give, the three restrictions that they had imposed on them were that they were forced to eat non-kosher meals somehow. They were forced to pray, to worship on not on the Sabbath, on other days, on Sunday or whatever. So, you know, they weren't allowed to worship on Saturdays. Again, so who's going to stop you? Who's going to stop you from doing your praying in your head on a Saturday if that's what you wanted to do?
How do you pay tidings in your head? Come on.
And the third thing, which was clearly the most important, was that they weren't allowed to perform circumcisions. Because even all the way back then, we were like, you should stop mutilating children and then molesting them right afterwards. Because their thing is called Brit Milah. I don't know how to say it. The other thing. But it's they when they do the circumcision, the moil will suck on it. Suck after he cuts the foreskin, he sucks on it. And go figure, the people even a couple thousand years ago had the same reaction that we have, which is, that's not real. Are you fucking kidding me? That's gross. That needs to be outlawed. So it was those 3 things amongst other things. They don't really go into it. But the Maccabees were this family that decided they no longer wanted to not circumcise. That was their motivation, is that they wanted circumcised because, you know, according to the Jays, the circumcision is the number 1 mitzvah. It's the most important mitzvah. It's the most important thing in their belief structure is the cutting and sucking of baby penis.
God damn it, Adam. I told you I wanted you to be naked. Now you have this skin growing over the head. Cut that off.
No.
You gotta be naked.
That would actually make more sense. But it's actually because of Abraham. Abraham had one of those altar phone booth things set up. You could talk to God. And God was like, yeah, because God makes covenants with people all the time, apparently. And he's made promises that he wasn't going to destroy the earth to multiple people. But he told Abraham that as long as he circumcised himself and then the J people and all of their slaves, then he would never.
That's us.
Yeah, that's
That's
us.
me.
That's us. Well, not you.
No.
That as long as that we would continue to see rainbows in the sky and he would never flood the earth again. And Abraham was like, all right, cool. So he circumcised himself, and then I think had like some 90 slaves or something. And then he circumcised all his slaves.
Let me fight a rag. What?
And then, and then again, imagine this guy, how he convinced everyone else to do it.
No, really, it's cool.
Look. It's this what God. I was talking to God, and God told me to do it, and said that He'll destroy the earth if we don't. So we got to do that shit. Oi!
I did it to myself, dude. It wasn't that big deal. Just bite this rag.
That's not how they talk. Oi! I did it to myself. It hurts like the hellish. That's what they talk like. But they, that it was like a fashion. People were like, oh, look at the way he's wearing his penis. I'm gonna do that too. Come on, can I get a penis cut? Why are you gonna cut it so far down? I can see everything. I can see your business. That's the new style, Mom. You just don't know. Stop living in the past. Okay? You didn't have a penis. All the other guys have their penises like that. Why can't I have my penis? Fucking gross.
Oh.
So Maccabees decide that, they've had enough. Enough is enough. They're going to circumcise. And what they did was they went around the country again. Back then, up and throughout history, people could move so fucking well. When you think about how people were so well traveled back before we had vehicles, it's just shocking. But these Jays went around, and not only were they able to go around the country, they also happened to know where all the Jays live. So when you say, oh, so you just assume all the Jays know each other, well, they did back then. Why wouldn't they now? It's not like there was the tech that they have today. So somehow they knew where all the Jays lived, and they went around the country forcing, because a lot of the Jays had been like, hey, you know what? It's not so bad. They let us do our thing. They just don't want us cutting. The whole penis thing is really gross anyway. So why do we even do it? The other stuff, I still worship on Saturdays. I don't eat any. My food is still kosher. Because again, this idea of kosher is, unless it's meat, kosher is just like, how you doing? And then it's kosher. There's nothing real special about it other than Goyim don't touch it. Rabbi blesses it and Goyim don't touch it. But when it comes to kosher slaughter, that's a whole different story. In kosher slaughter, they'll take, say, the cow, and they'll hang it upside down by its hooves, and they'll slit it from ear to ear and let it bleed out. It has to bleed out before it dies, which is I don't even understand how that fucking is supposed to make sense. But like if the cow has a heart attack or something while being strung up, it can't be used. And the place where the kosher slaughter has to take place, it can't have any goyim germs on it. It has to be cleaned of all the goyim germs. It's not a spider. I thought it was a spider too, cow. But they went around and they told all the Jays, either circumcise yourself and your family and then join our revolt, or we kill you. And so Jays were going around killing Jays unless they were willing to circumcise as adults. Yeah, not paying attention to us. And they ran around giving them the choice, telling them you do this or we kill you. And and those that didn't do it were killed. Them killing them. And this is supposedly this like magical story that, and it led to it didn't actually work out. Clean up the table. Well, two of them did. Those are mines.
Both of them?
Yes.
Fuck. Selfish.
Right? They after years of battle, they eventually won that right back. And that is what the celebration of Hanukkah is celebrating their right, them committing war and eventually being allowed on the Seleucids, I don't know how you say it. It's the part about educating yourself is a lot of the time the pronunciation gets a little lost. But that's what Hanukkah is. The eight crazy day or 7 crazy nights and 7 days, 8 nights, whatever it is. Yeah, because it starts at sundown. That's the narrative. That's what that is. You guys think that's cool? You guys get that? That's like that's kosher with you? The celebration of the right to cut baby penises. Like I just if anybody can tell me the difference between a horrible Waco style cult and Jayism, I'd love to know. I mean, I guess because with Waco you have a guy saying that he is said Messiah, so that kind of ruins things. But I mean, like, think about, like, just why do we accommodate this shit? It's so strange to me how people will be like, dude, just why can't they just do their thing, dude? What's the problem? They're mutilating and molesting children. Like, seriously, those children don't have any choice in the matter. The women are brainwashed into thinking their vaginas are poisonous. What, do you understand how disgusting that is?
Or at least too dirty to be touched.
Not just too dirty to be touched, though. Like, if you're menstruating, like I say, if she was menstruating and she had the audacity to ask me to pass her the spoon, I would set the spoon on the table and then she would pick it up. This is my wife. But because she's so gross, I'm not even going to touch anything she's touching. Although, do they sleep in the same bed or is she forced to sleep in a different room at night?
Oh, I'm sure it's a different name. I had no idea. I didn't realize there was that kind of crazy out there.
And it's super common. This is like, when it comes to Israel, this is the settler stuff. The settlers are the ones that are like full on fucking crazy like that. And they run around killing people and they don't get in trouble for it. Civilians out there killing people, being encouraged to kill people by their leadership. Like, do we even understand how insanely offensive all that is? It's crazy because you think, like, if somebody tried to physically do what Israel does to the United States, we'd all be super upset about it. But the behind the scenes, like, mental, spiritual, that they actually do to us, that we're like, yeah, that part's fine. I mean, everybody that cries about America first and we shouldn't be giving money to anyone and all this other bullshit. Yeah, you put those tariffs on all these other countries. You guys not get, like, you know what those tariffs do? They make everything more expensive for us.
Right, and they isolate us.
Yeah, if they decide not to ship that shit, if they decide not to pay it, then we lose all those products. Right. But if they do, the price is going to go up. They're not going to lose money. They're just going to up the prices to cover the shit. And you say, oh, well, they can't up the prices to pay tariffs. Right. They'll say, okay, well, we're upping the prices to cover new production costs.
Right. It's not for tariffs, it's for this.
Right. That's all they do. And it's like, what benefit do you think we get from that? The people. What benefit do you and I get from that? We get to pay more for it. And then what? Does that mean the roads are all getting fixed? Does that mean we all get free energy, free healthcare, free anything other than pokes, than meds, than very, very specific medicine?
But it saves your life.
Yeah, cancer medication isn't free. All those people that need their cancer medications, at least they think they do.
There's that.
Right. These thousands of dollars medications, those aren't free. They are in other countries. It's crazy. If you look up, like, any of the medication that your relative pays out the ass for or whatever, if you look it up what it costs in Europe, it'll be like $10. Right. It's just insane.
Well, and then, like, there's programs out there where you can get the medicine from the manufacturer in a lot of cases for free. Like, Todd down the street he needed the medication because of his kidney transplant to keep him alive, and it was like ridiculous, like $20,000 a month or some shit.
Yeah, well,
so he went to the
somehow he got that though. That's not, black people aren't getting that shit.
Well, Gary gets some sort of ginormous subsidy for his for the program.
Not only that, but the deficit with Canada exaggerated. If we include energy, oil, services, the U.S. is in deficit with us a lot. The truth is, y'all just, I mean, you have no idea what you're talking about, dude. You know the narrative that they want you to know. That's the sad part. Because you're a smart person. Right, that's it. I can't stress that enough. When I point out that you are stupid, you are ignorant, it's not
a choice.
Right, you were made this way. You think you're intelligent because you can regurgitate one narrative or another. Not understanding that you basically, just like everything, it's everything. Everybody picks what they like. You believe, quote, what you like. It does. You have the exact same Like, you have the exact same amount of truth and evidence that Islam is real, that you do Christianity is real. And yet you choose to be a Christian. Why? Why do you choose to be a Christian and over there they choose to be Muslim? I mean, part of, a lot of people say it's because there's no choice. You're tricked into it. You're pushed into it from a kid. And you are up until some point. But at some point, as an adult, you make that choice. Do I still continue to believe this bullshit? Or do I allow myself to ask the questions I undoubtedly have? And it's this is the part that we just don't think about. We all want to be right. We all want to be the smartest guy in the room. Or we want to, it's either we want to be the smartest guy in the room or we want to just blend into the background. On here, it's different because everybody gets a set of bullocks about them, Everybody suddenly, with that anonymity, they get tough guy. But all that ends up doing is just showing how stupid everyone really is. It's embarrassing. It's really pretty embarrassing how stupid we are.
By design.
Right. That's what I'm saying. By design, how stupid they have us. When you step back and you think about your Big Bang Theory, I can't even believe I'm at this point in my life where I'll say that the Jesus narrative that doesn't make any sense at all makes more sense than the Big Bang narrative. And I can't believe that comes out of my mouth nowadays. I never would have thought I was going to say that. But it's not because somebody else told me to think this way or that way. Somebody else opened my eyes. But I don't hear anybody. I'm sure there are people out there that do what I do. I just don't know about them because they're probably censored to bejesus and back. But I don't know anybody else that talks about how stupid the Big Bang Theory is. While also, calling out the Jesus theory, the religious theory. Like, these are all stupid things. They're basically the same narrative. They have basically the same premises. Something comes out of nothing and then creates everything. They're hang on a sec. Can you here give some opinions for a minute?
Opinions on what? I was typing a message.
Big Bang Theory.
The Big Bang Theory.
Not the show.
Right. No. I mean, I it's hard because I was a science person, math and science, and English, but I totally hated history and geography and all that. So, from my science background, like my brain wants to go, okay, well, it could happen. Like Clyde, explosion, life's created from fire. But, I guess if you look at it without a big science background and just think, okay, so two rocks hitting together, that creates life, that's bullshit. So I could see both sides of that argument just based on my past experience, but you know, explaining it through science would lead you to believe that's a possibility, and explaining it through just logic, and just our limited knowledge of when two things hit each other. Okay, there's no life that just got created from that. Okay. Um, that would make sense to people too. So I hate to be kind of wishy-washy on this one, but again, I don't know if I have a completely unbiased opinion because of my science background. I don't know.
What?
I mean, I was just explaining that, you know, if you have a science background, then everything that you've been taught, it seems potentially possible that things could collide in space and
Yeah, because you're
habitable
not.
life could be created from that.
But you're not also because you're not. You're still involved in the narrative. You're not questioning the narrative itself.
Well, no.
The ridiculousness of the concept of space to begin with. That's the part. Like you're not there yet. You're still, and I'm not. It's not a knock.
Okay, but even so, if it exists, that could be a possibility.
Well, if it
Whether
exists, then anything
or
could be a
not,
possibility. Then, but even if let's just say it is a ball in space, it does. It's still stupid. This idea that this invisible, so the gravity that makes the water, makes everything stick to the spinning Earth at 1,000 miles an hour, then makes big giant planets revolve around each other in vacuums. But to get to that big giant planet point, it sucks everything in to make the round ball that lights itself on fire in the middle, and and then it's caught in this gravity line somehow that then it makes it's you're talking about, from a science perspective, you're talking about two completely different forces when you're talking about one making one revolve around each other in empty space and another one making things not only stick to a planet but not stick to a planet, but also make the clumps come together to form the planet. Like it's all one force doing that.
I don't know.
But you do. That's my point. Is I think you're a lot smarter than I guess you do, or than you've been told that you are, because that is the narrative that you're given. Does that make sense? That one force makes the water and the people. Will the water stick to the ball spinning at 1,000 miles per hour? So from a physics perspective, how do you make water stick to a ball?
I mean, it would just be the centrifugal force that I would assume would keep it on.
Centrifugal force is the one that it would shoot it out. So on a ball spinning around, what would happen is the water would pool in the center, at the center line, the equator, if you will, and then fly out.
Or up against edges.
But there's no edges.
Shorelines.
But that's not an edge. The reason why you don't fly out of the gravitron is because the wall is there. The solid wall is there. That's why you stick to the thing. Otherwise, you go flying off. I mean, it's like, because we've been given the science narrative, and because maybe you got good grades in that shit, you've overridden your common sense that tells you, wait, that doesn't make sense. But again, so the magical force, there's this window in between the earth and the sky that is somewhere. We don't really know where that edge is. And apparently they can fly through it with no problem. But the air above the ball spinning at 1,000 miles per hour is spinning at the exact same speed, so much so that you can't feel it. And birds can fly in the opposite direction, seeds can fly, And that yet this gravity, this force that knows exactly how much force, the force to eventually pull the seed to the ground, because it's gravity that eventually pulls the seed to the ground. Mm-hmm. That it knows how much force to use then, but it also knows exactly how much force it takes to keep water put on a ball spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. That just doesn't make sense. This force would have to be the most intelligent force ever created. And again, it also knows that when it comes to gravityless, empty superspace where there's nothing, that in that situation, now you make things go around each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Why would that make sense? In what scenario would you be able to even test for that? You can't create a vacuum that you can then throw balls into and see how they revolve around each other. It's just fucking stupid. Like it and then when you think about it, so what it is, okay. So it's this big empty area. Now I always ask this, I wasn't gonna do it, but I always ask this. Was the singularity, which is, the precursor to the Big Bang is the singularity. So that's everything that ever existed ever. It broken down into microscopic dust particles, because everything is stardust, essentially, from what they tell us. Everything in the universe. You can't even comprehend how much that is, was because of gravity being condensed down into something smaller than the size of a match head. Now, is that little tiny singularity that's just about ready to explode Big Bang style, is that inside the big empty blackness of space? Is there like did the Big Bang fill up the space, or did it also create the space? And if it created the space, then what was the singularity in to begin with? Like, I know you'll say things like, well, blah, 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 but you have to be able to answer for this. This is the foundation of your belief structure, is that this particular event happened. The singularity is there, shaking. Because, when you're in a vacuum, if in that vacuum you then have a gravity that is condensing something in on itself, of course it's going to explode, right? I mean, that's what happens when you condense the everything into itself. And for how long? How long did the singularity exist before the Big Bang blew up? Again, these are all questions that I guess you're just not supposed to answer. Or not supposed to ask? I don't know. But suddenly, the Big Bang explodes. Stewie farts, and the Big Bang explodes. And there's the initial explosion. Then there's a bunch of darkness. Then the singularity is now spewing out space dust in every direction, debris, space dust, every single. I mean, it's a ball, right? It's a singularity. It's something a match head, smaller. So when it explodes, like this again, this is just part of the narrative that you're not supposed to ask. So if you have a ball that's exploding, every unit of measure that it gets away from the initial explosion, each piece is going to be farther away from its other pieces in relation. So if you start here, by the time you get here, the piece that was here is going to be way over here, and the piece that was right next to it is going to be way over here. And the further you get, it doesn't, like, the pieces don't get closer together as they go out further and further. But that is what happened. And now suddenly there are magical gravity pockets, right? And the gravity pockets are like, again, swirls, I assume, swirls that just pull in all the little microscopic bits, the dust and the debris and the stardust, into these clumps that eventually, in space now, they're in space, no oxygen, no gravity. These clumps light themselves on perpetual plasma fire, right? Perpetual plasma fire. See, now she's on her text, so she's not involved in this, and then she's still going to believe what she believes because she's missing this information.
I've heard your arguments.
Right, but you've heard my arguments. You don't have anything to contend with them. I'm telling you what you believe. I'm doing your side. I don't believe this. This is what you have to believe. This is why it's so fucked up.
No, there's the difference. What I have to believe.
It is. If you want to believe in the round earth, then you have to believe this narrative. Because the people that tell you the earth is round, it's round.
Doesn't mean everything they're saying is
it's
true.
round because of this narrative. And they tell you this with the same certainty that they tell you it's round. They tell you that this is the narrative. The only reason you believe the earth is round is because of this same narrative. You can't just pick and choose which pieces you like. How that's arrogance. But the plasma fire lights itself, and then because again we're in space, but somehow there's still a top and a bottom on that plasma ball. There's a north and a south pole, which again you because of your science brain go, yeah, that makes sense. There would be a north and a south pole on a round object. And how? What would be a north and a south on a ball in space? Where would the north and south come from? That shit could be in any direction. Why would the poles, how would there be a top and a bottom? It would always be just spinning around and shit. But you've been taught to believe that somehow the plasma ball now has a top and a bottom, and along the middle of it, now there are these concentric rings of gravity, but this is the different kind of gravity. This is the gravity that makes the things going around the thing, not pulls the things together. But in the midst of those round gravity rings, there's also gravity that's pulling more stardust in on itself, which then creates the planets that then spin around. And if there's, like, we're told that Earth used to be a lot bigger, and it was called Tiamat. And then a big asteroid hit it and knocked off a third of the Earth or a quarter of the Earth or whatever. And then because of magical gravity, the Earth reformed into the solid ball that it is now, while all that debris formed into the moon. And that's sort of the official how we got the moon narrative. But then you go, so Mars has 2 moons, Jupiter has a giggity moons, Saturn has a giggity moons. Like, what do you mean? Is that what happened with all of those planets too? Or all those moons too? The Beeve! What's happening, Beeve? And so they call it the submivious zone, and that's what science has determined, that is the distance from the sun to how far out you can go that a planet could live and sustain life. They've decided that it's X amount of miles. And one of my favorite animations is where they show you like the size of things, and they say like, this is the moon, this is you, this is the moon, this is the moon in relation to the earth, this is the earth in relation to Jupiter, this is Jupiter in relation to the sun, this is our tiny little sun in relation to all, they start naming off all these stars, and each star gets bigger and bigger to the point where they finally get to Betelgeuse, which is so big you can't even see our sun anymore, which means you definitely can't see our little planet or our little moon or even us. Betelgeuse is so big you can't even comprehend how big it is. Right? That's the point. You can't comprehend how big the sun is. You can't even comprehend how big the earth is. Even the idea of 26,000 miles around, you can't comprehend that. Just like you can't comprehend the 62,000 miles per hour they say the earth goes around the sun. You can't comprehend that shit. Right? But you then believe that within this submivious zone, the planet forms, and then it's in its little special rotation, and in the middle of the planet, instead of lights on fire, and you're told that our planet is like a jello mold, the inner core, the outer core, the inner mantle, the outer mantle, the crust, you know, the floop flop. It's got all these different Jello pudding flavors. And you guys just accept it. We can only drill 8 miles down. Do you guys remember when Trump said he was going to open the drilling and they were going to go further than that? Never happened. What happened to that? That's like all those people that have said by now we would have space hotels. People remember, or the elevator. China is building the elevator up to space. There's going to be the space elevator because that's a thing. How else can they tell you that we don't live on a spinning ball than by talking about building a giant elevator up to space? Look at that reaction. This thing would be like, it's hanging onto the ball. Whoa, as it's spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. This is such utter stupidity. It's insulting. Do you guys realize they have somehow come up with a way to trick you into believing that rocks will fall from the sky? Come on, Chubby. Rocks fall from the sky. Haven't you ever wondered, how does a comet get into an orbit around the sun? How come they don't go in nice concentric circles? How come they go in these big, long? How does it pull it all the way back from here? What the fuck are you talking about? Comets in orbit around the sun in these weird elliptical orbits, and some of them take hundreds and hundreds of years. How does the sun know to exude enough pressure to pull the comet that goes hundreds of years out all the way back, and yet that comet is way smaller than the Earth? So how does the sun put the force on, like, how does it put different forces on different things? It's just like everything else. So gravity knows to put enough force on the Earth to have it go around and not get pulled into the sun, but also enough force to know Jupiter, which is much bigger, will revolve around the sun and not get pulled in or thrown out. It knows Jupiter needs this much force, Earth needs this much force, Venus needs this much force. Like, think about what they're telling you. Gravity is this magical, super intelligent, like mathematical force. And of course, all of the planets have Lagrange points. Why does the moon orbit the Earth? See, you can't get past it. There is no orbiting the Earth. It's a fucking stupid concept. Are you saying, unless you're saying, wow, like, think about it. Why would that rock revolve around the Earth? And it happened. Did you guys know that the Earth or the moon is actually spinning? But it's spinning in such a way, in such a precise speed, and it's never ever deviated or never been a hiccup, never anything, that the same exact face to the fucking degree. We've never had a little bit of what would you call it? Parallax, where the moon would kind of slow down, or maybe, nope, the same exact face has always been facing us because it just happens to be spinning at the exact speed necessary. The idea that there's a dark side of the moon. Well, if the moon travels in front of the sun, like, there wouldn't be a dark side of the moon. That's fucking stupid. There'll be plenty, like, the fact that the moon would be in between the Earth and sun at any point. We don't have these long ass months of eclipse. The moon is in front, and yet it's still lit up somehow. It'll be between the Earth and the sun, and it'll be lit up, and there's a dark side. I mean, it just gets, the more you look into it, the dumber it gets. if if space was full of a bunch of suns, there wouldn't be any darkness. It can be pitch black in my room. If I turn on the light all the way over there, I can still see the back of the fucking whatever it is I'm looking at. The thing doesn't become pitch black with some Terminator line. Lucky we have gravity, or we would fall off, or we would spin off. Exactly. It's just the stupidest concept. And again, it would have to be so intelligent. Gravity would have to be like, okay, so Guy Williams is about to pull his hair up. Okay, I know we have a force that pulls everything down to the earth, but don't worry about his hair. Just let it sit up like nothing is even affecting it at all. It's not moving even a little bit. It's not slowly falling down. It's just staying just like that. Because there's a force that pulls everything down, right? Do you believe in flat earth? I don't believe the earth is a round ball flying through space. That's what I'm comfortable saying. You know what's funny? I was watching this video about this indigenous tribe. I've discovered this channel on YouTube, and it's a tribe where they and they talk like that and shit. They have the clicks and shit. And like, it's crazy. They show them eating, and it's just like insane. Them eating, just pulling out like intestines and just, they cook it obviously, but it's so gross. But when they ask them questions, like they asked one of the guys, what do you think happens when you die? And he went, I don't know. You go into the ground and that's the end. Okay, I don't know. They don't care. They asked the kids, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think your future is like? And the kids were like, do you mean what's going to happen when we grow up? And he was like, yeah. And they were like, they don't have a concept of that. They don't think about it that way. The one guy was saying literally all he thinks about all day and all night is how to get baboon meat, because baboon meat is the sweetest. And because their area has been reduced down to 10% of what they originally had, their way of life is being completely compromised. But these people absolutely exist. Those people absolutely exist. People you wouldn't think exist. People who don't understand any sort of concept of anything. And of course, in an Armageddon situation, those people get to go to hell, right? Because they're not going to swear allegiance to Jesus Christ. They don't have any concept of that. So those people just get to go to hell because they happen to be born into some crazy tribe. But see, the funny thing is, like in our mind, that just looks awful. And literally the huts that they live in are these tiny little, to me it just looks horrible. They seem really happy, but it looks horrible. But the crazy part is anytime they get anything, let's say they get a thing of Coke, a bottle of Coke. As soon as they take a drink, they're like, hey, come here. Everybody, they want everybody else to taste it. Nobody has any sort of selfish, this is mine, I need to hoard it all to myself. They want everybody to taste it. That's really special to think about that. We're not like that at all. All of you people out there that are completely distracted by gas versus oil. Gas versus electric. Well, look at all those electric pumps. They require a fucking diesel generator to run them. Yeah. One diesel generator to fuel a whole bunch of fucking different engines is probably better than a whole bunch of fucking combustion engines. I'm just saying. However, electric cars were here way before the gas-powered car, the internal combustion engine. Electric vehicles have been here for a very long time. If you look at all that old footage where you'll see like those trams running around the cities and shit, those are electric. But while you're distracted by the two choices you're given, which is kind of familiar, right? Two choices. You Republican or Democrat. You a religious or atheist. You a man or a woman. You a gay or a straight. It's only one of them. You can't. It's only two choices. You don't get to be one of two choices. We want gas cards. We want electric cars. People are fighting. They have Goyim fighting over the thing. And I shared this video yesterday, made by that same dude that did the Israel stuff. But he showed how all of the corporations basically own each other and how they all want each other to succeed. There's no competition amongst the top. Everybody makes money off of everybody. It's all just one big corporation against us, right? But you're told, pick one. Gas or electric. Gas or electric. Gas or electric. And instead of us being like, hey, can we get those water-powered cars that multiple people have invented over the years, that the government has then ran around and bought up or killed them and stole the technology, one of the two? Can we get those electric, those water-powered cars, please? Why do they have us distracted by the two things instead of the obvious one thing? There's a lot of you that just don't think it's real. There's no water-powered cars. It never existed. Yeah, there's plenty. Water-powered car. Let's see. Stanley Meyer and his water-powered car. The mysterious death of Stanley Meyer. Let's see if we could talk about this. So, what do you want to talk about? The crime scene is in Grove City, Ohio, Franklin County, with all of the ingredients of the setting in the American province that is dear to crime writers. God damn it. Just give me the fucking story. It's the 21st of March, 1988, the first day of spring, and four men are having lunch in a restaurant. A waiter serves one of them some cranberry juice, perhaps, but we will never know for sure, chosen for dessert. This man, immediately after the first sip, suddenly gets up as if he's gone crazy. He holds his hands around his neck. He loses his breath, runs out into the parking lot, collapses to the ground, and pronounces his last words, "They poisoned me." Steve Robinette, the lead detective on the case, collected the testimonies of everyone in the parking lot, including the final disturbing words of a man immediately identified as Stanley Meyer, a citizen of Grove City. His brother, Stephen, was one of four at the table, and he heard the words spoken at the end of his life. Robinetti is not one for interminable investigations. He performed a toxicology analysis which gave no significant result. Sure you did. And he also spoke to the coroner, who attributed his death to a brain aneurysm compatible with previous episodes of hypertension. In just 3 months, he closed the case file, sealed it with a colored elastic band, and wrote on the cover, "Death by natural causes." Formally, the case was now resolved. In 2015, Robinetti retired from the police force and devoted himself to politics, becoming president of the city council. And in 2019, he also ran for mayor. Sounds like he did well.
I never get anything about space or UFOs. You were talking about space, and look at the fucking spam email that comes through in my
right away.
listening to it.
But we can all rest assured that in all these years, he never forgot the case of Stanley Meyer, the inventor of the water-powered car who, in 1998, got up from a table at a restaurant to run into a car park, some say just to leave us a message. They poisoned me, and it's because of what I'm doing to revolutionize the car world. The coroner's report contained the following statement. No poison known to American science has been found. That's a weird way to say it. No poison known to American science. That could be lots of things, couldn't it? But maybe the search for Meyer's enemies should have gone beyond American soil. We have to go back to 1975 when Meyer, who spent his life patenting technical solutions of every kind, from the banking sector to, ironically, heart monitoring, decided to explore the automotive world. In that year, the effects of the Middle East embargo, which had also led to were still considerable, with a significant drop in. You know why that was? That had to do with Israel. They don't talk about that shit, but that had to do with Israel. Literally, this presidency mimics Reagan in so many fucking ways, especially the idea of the hostages being released the following day. And, you know, it's just so insulting how they do this right in front of us. And you're the conspiracy theorist for pointing it out and asking questions. It's not like, hey, let's answer your questions and help you understand. It's you're a bad guy. Meyer thought that the way to get out of the oil dependency was through water propulsion. Yes, water, a very alternative solution. It goes without saying. He created a fuel cell based on the principle of splitting water atoms into elemental form, burning hydrogen to create energy, and releasing oxygen, along with water residue, through the exhaust pipe, thus generating harmless emissions. I mean, that's what nuclear fucking, that's what they do in submarines, isn't it? Isn't that strange how that's the electrolysis process that they say the submarines use? After a few months, he managed to develop a water-powered engine, mounting it into a dune buggy painted with the conspicuous writing water-powered car, and with a call to his Christian faith to communicate the spirit of production and creation which animated his actions. Meyer claimed his vehicle was able to travel 180 kilometers with just 4 liters of water and nothing else. 4 liters of water and you could travel 150 miles. 45 kilometers with just a liter or of something that costs hardly anything may have sounded truly magical, and that's exactly when his troubles started. Taking a look at what's left on his inexplicable series of events, there is a film of this moving car and various photos of the car surrounded by admiring people. But many argue that no one ever really verified the actual operation of the engine, whether it was powered purely by water, and whether the patent or the project worked at all. Analyzing the case, there have been rivers of words and ink spent over the years, both to support and refute Meyer's thesis, and especially the veracity of what he claimed. Now, is this going to be like one of these Kennedy things where the people against are like, oh well, you had to know him. He wasn't the type to do that. I don't think he was capable of doing that. He didn't know about water. Stupid stuff like that. And then the pro side will be like, and then there's this, and then there's this, and on this date he did this, and on that date they did this, and this person witnessed it, and that person witnessed it, and this, and this, and this. The whole Jack Ruby narrative, where Ruby flat out said they poisoned him. They gave him cancer. Ruby said he was, that we'll never know who actually was behind his motivations and why he did it.
He was going to die whether they killed him or not.
Well, Ruby was an Israeli operative. That's literally what it comes down to. Jack Rubenstein was an Israeli operative. Even an American judicial authority in 1996, 2 years before his mysterious death, had looked into Meyer's invention, petitioned by several small investors who had financed the development of his project, who later became suspicious and worried that it was doomed to bankruptcy. Water is part of automobile history. In this image, the Fiat Stingolari 750 Sport that won the Torbonne blah blah race in 1939. In that case, water was vaporized in the combustion chamber to improve cooling. 39 they could do it, huh? The Fayette County judge, Ohio, had appointed 3 surveyors to whom Meyer refused to submit the car, and who concluded that, noting that the chemical and technological process invented by Meyer would not be at all revolutionary, even going so far as to call it trivial, and that no evidence provided that could actually effectively power an automobile engine. Well, I mean, I'm assuming he didn't want to, lose his tech. I'm assuming he was probably pretty protective and didn't want to just let anybody come in and steal his designs. The judge then issued his verdict, in which he decreed that the funds received by Meyer had been stolen by deception, gross and egregious fraud, and he was sentenced to return it to his investors. For a man whose livelihood depended on his integrity, this was certainly not a small financial pill to swallow, and perhaps worse still, honor. Certainly this was a very sad epilogue for someone who had proclaimed themselves to be the savior of a complex equation between efficient automobile production, respect for environment, and affordable power. Stanley had previously stated that he had been threatened many times by representatives from oil companies around the world, including tales of car chases with armed guards. Fantasy? Question mark. He also claimed he had been offered the hyperbolic sum of $1 million, some even say $1 billion, to kill all evidence of his technology, and that he had refused. There you go. That's when they start offering you the big bucks and you refuse, that's when you get in trouble. I've said it before, I'll say it again. They could get rid of me pretty easily. $20 million, I'm gone. I'm not even greedy. $20 million isn't shit to them. A scientist who tried to get in touch with Meyer to learn more about his project declared that Stanley had a paranoid attitude and that he had flatly refused to subject the dune buggy to a test in order to verify its performance, even if they promised not to open the black box containing the electronic components that powered the system. I mean, how many death threats do you think it takes before somebody's a little paranoid about anybody coming into their space like that? And so we're going to see again, the narrative against is that, come on, he didn't let us look. And we know just how many car manufacturers have faced the delicate problem of hydrogen propulsion. Water still lies at the heart of the process, but with far greater design and construction complexities. Stanley and his brother Stephen, despite their defeat, tried to protect what they continued to declare as an invention of the century. Stephen Meyer claimed that 1 week after Stanley's death, unidentified people had stolen the dune buggy from Stanley's garage, along with all of the inventor's instruments, and that the vehicle had subsequently been found, but it's unclear under what circumstances and conditions. Gosh, that's crazy. I mean, it's crazy to assume something was wrong there. Of course, the fucking shit was stolen. Why wouldn't it be? That's how that works. The patent had been registered, and the dune buggy was later closed off in a room without doors so that no one could steal it and destroy it. But, according to Meyer's detractors, so that no one could examine it and discover the weakness of the patent. It seems that in 2014, and therefore some 16 years after the death of Stanley, the vehicle turned up in Canada, perhaps sold by his brother Stephen, now under ownership of the Holbrook family, claimed to be the old associates of Stanley, but nothing is known of it after that date. Why? Why, guys? Why would this happen? We cannot therefore exclude the possibility of new chapters being added to this thriller in which reality, reticence, and suppression alternate continuously, firmly keeping the suspicious of Meyer's supporters alive. The suspicion of Meyer's supporters alive, who still doubt all investigative evidence, the purity of that cranberry juice. I mean, it's like, why would we trust the narrative of the system that continuously lies to us? Have you guys ever seen any sort of interview with the pipe bomb guy? Do you remember the pipe bomb guy? The guy that supposedly lived in a van down by the river. A van so covered in propaganda stickers that he would have been pulled over many times driving it, because all lines of sight were covered by stickers. And the picture that they showed us of the dude literally looked fake. Like, normally they do a better job. And normally they use the same sort of picture. I mean, that Thomas Matthew Crooks photo is the same kid that they always use. Goofy white kid, sort of doughy faced, short hair, the glasses. I mean, it's all there. But remember that guy? He supposedly constructed a bunch of non-working pipe bombs that he sent to all these people. And then when they arrested him and they found his van on the corner, they were going to tow it away. And just as the news cameras were there to see it, suddenly a breeze blew and the tarp wasn't completely tied down on the van, and we got to see all of the stickers. I mean, come on, how amazing is that? What an amazing coincidence. And then that dude just disappeared. That guy's story just buried. And where did he go? What happened to him? Whatever happened to the reporter that was killed on live TV? The only thing I've heard about her was that her father, in, like, I think it was early 2019, maybe it was late 2018. Yeah, what's up, bud? Yeah, some guy in yes, sir. That a guy in Las Vegas, I believe, wrote a book about Sandy Hook. And just, like, again, it's crazy to think that in this world we live in, people can compile evidence, and instead of our society going, oh, you have questions, here, let me help you understand, let me answer those questions for you, they get chastised for asking the questions. And so this guy writes this book that gets published by this random publishing house. And of course, we don't hear about this story until after it's over. We'll see. This guy wrote this book, and apparently one of the fathers of the Sandy Hook kids decides he's going to sue him and sue the publishing house as well. And the lawsuit is for $100,000. And again, we don't hear about any of this until after everything's said and done, where at some point, this is how this works. So at some point, the publisher said that he heard this story from he didn't realize what he was doing, and he heard the story from the parent, supposed parent, and he decided to side with the parent. So suddenly the lawsuit wasn't against the publishing house anymore. That's not how things work. He still would have been responsible for whatever, but the guy ends up getting found guilty and has to pay, blah, blah, blah. But not only is it the dad from the Sandy Hook kid, the father of the reporter. Do you guys remember the reporter that was shot on live TV? White girl sitting there interviewing somebody when somebody comes walking up to her and it's clearly a white guy. You see that his hand on the gun and she sees him coming walking up, but she does nothing. And he shoots her in the face and kills her and then, I don't know, kills the other guy. I don't remember the whole story, but it was on live TV. And then it cut back to the, and the girl was like, we'll be right back. And nothing ever came of that story. It came out that they tried to say it was a black guy that did it. But everybody was like, look at his hand. It's clearly a white guy. And once that happened, the story just went away, right? Well, apparently her dad and sorry. They somehow teamed up and they won this case. Now, CBS News is now interviewing the father of the Sandy Hook kid, and they're blurring his identity because he says that he's been run out of 3 different neighborhoods and he just faces so much harassment everywhere he goes because because all of his neighbors are crazy conspiracy theorists and everybody around him is consistently just running him out of the neighborhood. Right? And so they interview this guy and he's making these claims and they end up showing his website, which right on his website it has a picture of him. So you can actually see what he looks like, but they blur his face and everything when he's talking and blurs. And it's just the craziest, little addition to the narrative ever. And Aisha's here. What's up, my dude? Good to see you, man. And the story then just disappears, right? It's just gone. It's just gone. And what happened with that guy? Did he didn't make that kind of money? But the thing is, why didn't we hear about it beforehand? Why did they only talk? Hey, his parents have a party that he has to help with.
Yeah, but his dad said he might be able to.
Oh, you've already handled it? I mean, it's all a distraction. Everything is a distraction, you guys. Understand that. Do you guys remember the story of the random black guy, the Facebook killer? He was like the original Facebook killer, and he came live, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill my girlfriend. I went to her job and I shot 13 people up, and now she wasn't there, and I'm on my way to go find her, and I'm gonna go kill her." And he went live, and then at some point He's like, hey, I see somebody. And he jumps out of his car and he walks up to this old man. And he's like, hey. And the old man's like, what? Oh, no. And as he does that, the guy shoots him and spins, does a pirouette. Remember, because usually when you shoot people, you spin around, right? Well, this guy shoots him and spins around. And when he turns back around, the old man's laying on the ground, totally dead, not moving, and just totally stiff and laying in like a weird direction. All in one spin. It wasn't like he was falling down or anything. He was just dead. And of course, immediately the community starts looking at that video frame by frame, and they find the point where the video is cut. It's in the pirouette. That's why he did that unnecessary pirouette, so there could be that point where they edit it. So there's a point where he stops and then it picks back up. And that's when he comes back, and now the old man's... But once you understand that, and then you understand that story just disappeared. It just disappeared. Why would that happen? You know? Do you guys even remember that shit? Do you know how many of those stories have existed over the last few years? And so many of those stories existed during the Trump presidency? Has anybody noticed that the gas prices and the food prices haven't gone down yet? Why is the gas price... Oh, look, the dumbass says anti-Semitic. So stupid. Not anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic is racist. Nobody should be anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic is the Palestinians. It's the Syrians, the Yemenis, the Iranians, the Lebanese, the Egyptians, the Moroccans. All these people are black, white, brown. They're all Semitic people. It's the region. The Jays don't own that. They like to think they own everything, but they don't own that. Now, on the other hand, I am extremely, extremely proud of my anti-Semitism. And that's because I'm smart enough to know what words mean. I'm not just some dumbass who regurgitates because that's what I'm told to do. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be kind of confused right now, so let me help you understand. Okay? So we're going to do this. And we're going to go Semitism, definition. Okay. Merriam-Webster. Okay. Semitism, definition, Merriam-Webster. Number 1, A, Semitic character or qualities. Why won't it say it?
Semitism.
There it is. Just so you see it.
Semitism.
Okay. Number 1B, a characteristic feature of a Semitic language occurring in another language. Okay. Number 2, most importantly, policy or predisposition favorable to Jays. You know what that means? Are you smart enough to understand what that is? What policy or predisposition means? Policy is the laws, the rules, the regulations, our policies. And predisposition is if you go to a basketball game and out to be a ballet, you're going to be pretty upset because your predisposition was that you thought you were going to a basketball game. Going into it, you expected this, right? So if policy and predisposition, that's expectation, is favorable to Jays, why? Why would anything? That's a nice way of saying supremacy. You guys get that, right? They won't say it's Jay supremacy. But how else do you what else would you call, like, how could you word supremacy more, nicely? It's not supremacy. It's just that the policies and the way everybody's supposed to look at things is just favorable to us. That's all. That's all it is. Why? What's funny about that? I don't get it. Conspiracy theorist. See, this is the stuff like my wife. You guys don't get it. My wife is very like doesn't like this. She's very like we all live together, peace and harmony, hippie kind of person. Like doesn't like the things that I say necessarily, and resisted me on all of this. But it's it's like I'm on this personal journey to sort of try to get her to see it too. Like and that she's such a great barometer for me. Like if I can get her to see it, then I can get you guys to see it. And the definition of the word is one of those things that my really smart wife is going to have a hard time overlooking. What does policy and predisposition being favorable to say to you? You all right? Oh, something else going on. Whatever. It's just strange. Just strange. You okay? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? You're so lost, you're so ignorant, you're so arrogant that you can't be involved in the conversation because you don't know things. And so you just go, Trump! How stupid do you have to be for that? That's fucking hilarious. I just don't understand people, man. I don't understand how anybody can be so ignorant about, like, it's one thing to be ignorant because you're just oblivious. You've never, I don't know, I guess I'm so well programmed to not view myself as anything better than anyone else. We're all just the same here. And because I do that, I then think, like, why don't you guys do what I do? Why do you guys just believe certain things while scrutinizing or criticizing or whatever other elements of the same thing? But because it's your version, you think it's okay. Like, you can't put that on me. I'm not telling you that there's a Sky Daddy that's better than the other Sky Daddies. I'm not saying any one group deserves policy or predisposition favorable to them. It's so, I don't know how else to see it other than the evidence of who's opposing me, right? Because if you look at my foundation and what I'm doing, and then you think there are all these goofy people here that are, mad. I'm mad at you. Like, oh, I'm not mad. And then they'll say, I'm not mad. I'm not mad. I can't believe that bitch said that. I am going to kick her ass. I thought you said you weren't going to get mad. I'm not mad. But, like, you guys are just such weird clowns. And I, it's scary because it shows you just how stupid either we are or they want us to be. I really do have a hard time accepting the idea that it's anything other than just bots. Like, I really have a hard time believing that real people are this stupid and this obsessed. How could anybody be this obsessed with me in such a negative, stupid way? I just don't buy that. That just seems like, and their arguments and everything, it just seems like typical J nonsense because they're stupid. This is a stupid people. So a stupid people's bot program isn't going to be able to override what I'm doing or saying. Like, you have to wonder, what would these people do if not for me? I give them their existence every day. Whenever I go live, they're here. For as long as I'm here. Because they hate me so much. And what? Like, just what? Who buys that? My wife just lit some incense.
It's the one that's like.
I know, it's not bad. It smells like Grandma and Papa's bathroom. It smells like Grandma and Papa's bathroom. They used to use that spray all the time. I don't know, man. You look at this whole thing, and you have to ask yourself, like look at my previous feed, right? My feed was going so strong that they had to shut it down. They must not have expected, you know what it is they didn't expect me to go live this early on Saturday. Normally I don't go live this early on Saturday. Oh, that's what it is. So I snuck in before they were, fucking with things. But it because there's so much evidence and there's so many different elements to this, I end up talking about things that I really shouldn't even waste my time with. The reality is everybody should be watching. Not people are that stupid. Oh, look, Ugly Hobo is flying the pedo flag. Anybody flies the pedo flag, you're getting blocked. Told you guys this yesterday. I'll give you the same warning each day. Well, not you. I'm going to remember you now. So if you want to fly the pedo flag, then I'm going to block you. Sorry, not letting all that shit take place. People are stupid, but not similar. Like, you have to see it. When you see it from a bigger picture point, like, all of these people are the exact same stupid. They get the same wording wrong. They think this, like, how could everybody be the same stupid? The same cowardly version where they can't answer for anything, and it's all the same shit. I didn't see your stuff. Tom H, flying the pedo flag. All right. See, and that's exactly what he is. Because he instead of being like, dude, that's not the pedo flag, but he's like, ha ha, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, what kind of fucking disgusting shit is that? That's what we're talking about. That's who we're talking about. Oh, there you go. You want to be gone? Please fly it. You're acknowledging you're a pedo and that you're looking for other people to share content with you. I think they've moved into that category because what brilliant sort of thing is that, right? They could say, oh, it's just the pride thing. Oh, it's just, it's something that's associated with really horrible shit anyway. But now that I've given you exactly the parameters, exactly the specifications for what this feed entails, and I'm letting you know, if you fly that shit, you're going to be blocked because I assume you're a pedo and I don't want you sharing materials on my page or in my comment section. If you choose to fly it after that, that's on you. Who builds their military bases on top of hospitals? What? What kind of... What? What? I don't even know what that means. The Jays are the worst. They really are the worst. You can't show me a single video of any sort of Jays in any sort of danger or conflict or anything. Little Jay children running around looking for their parents with their arms blown off and shit. If you support that in any way, you're just a fucking a disgusting, like, awful, expendable human being. Right? It's just disgusting. Israel has the right to have their own land. Right. Right. They just get to take it from somebody else. That makes sense. Why should anybody accommodate a cult? This is a cult. Right? We're talking about cult practices, cult beliefs, crazy rituals and shit like that. The cutting and sucking of baby penises. This is it's just insane. Like, there's no way you can. How do you think they got kicked out, buddy? How do you think they got kicked out of what? What are you even talking about? You're just stupid. You're saying stupid things. You're defending people who sacrifice their own. Yeah, they sacrifice their own citizens. What kind of stupid shit is that? Like, these narratives are just stupid. So Israel bombing everywhere and killing hostages all over the place is them sacrificing their own. They don't even have a military. Hamas is just the Israeli boogeyman. Hamas isn't real. It's as real as Al-Qaeda. It's as real as ISIS. These are just fucking mental games that they play with us. You guys understand that no Israelis were killed on October 7th. No Israelis were killed and no Israelis were taken hostage. It's just not real. Go look at the videos of the hostages supposedly being released after over a year. You tell me those look like hostages, all those fat fucking faces and goofy ass. They're smiling and waving. Everything's all happy. Go look at what real hostages look like after they've been fucking captured for a month. Go look at anybody that comes out of Israeli death camps that actually gets released by the Israelis. Go look at how any of them look after they get released. These are the worst people in the world. And they lie. They lie. No Israelis were killed. It was all false narrative. They claim that Hamas launched 5,000 rockets in the first 20 minutes, and because it all happened so fast, there was no real footage of it. 5,000 rockets is 4 rockets per second. Somehow, these people that can't get medicine, can't get lumber to rebuild their houses because Israel says that, because there's a blockade around Gaza, and Israel stops everything coming in and going out. And they won't let even lumber come in because they say that wood could be then used against Israel. And yet somehow they were able to sneak in not only 5,000 rockets, but enough rocket launchers to be able to launch 4 rockets per second for 20 minutes. Do you actually believe that narrative that you're given? If you read any of the narratives you're given, all the news and all that, they repeatedly say that around 1,100 people in Israel were killed on October 7th. That's not how they refer to themselves. If it was, they would say shit like around 1,100, or they'd give you an exact number, 1,100 something or other, 1,133 innocent Israelis were killed. Innocent J people were killed. That's how they would refer to themselves. They always do. When they say around 1,100 people in Israel were killed, well, they also happen to acknowledge that almost immediately after the so-called attack took place, they, settlers and IDF agents, killed around 1,500 Hamas, which is literally just anybody they decide to kill. They just say, oh, that person's a militant. Oh, that person is Hamas. So they just slaughtered a whole bunch of Palestinians. It was a well-planned, well-executed thing. While painting themselves as the victims, they're slaughtering people. And so then when they released the report and they say, well, around 1,100 people were killed in Israel, well, they're telling the truth. It's just not the truth that you think it is. You think they're saying around 1,100 Israelis, but they're not. They would say so. The only evidence that you've been provided that Israelis were killed is a list of names. And when you know how important their funerals are to them, so much so that 3 weeks later, here in Detroit, a J community leader named Samantha Wohl was found dead on October 21st at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. 6:30 a.m. Don't need to say in the morning. 6:30 a.m. She's found dead by a neighbor in her front lawn. The next morning's newspaper talk about how her funeral was beautiful and over 1,000 people attended. So we're saying this community leader was found dead. Nobody knew what happened at the time. She'd been stabbed a bunch of times. That somehow, within a few hours of being found dead, she not only had a funeral, but 1,000 people were able to attend it. Over 1,000 people. That makes sense, right? Because that's their beliefs are somehow trumping any sort of investigation that would have to take place, any autopsies, and there's lots of things that have to go into that sort of situation before you can just bury somebody that's been found murdered. Come to find out, her boyfriend actually called and confessed to doing it, but he was later given immunity because he said that he had taken a double dose of his psych meds, because he was already on psych meds, and hit his weed pen 4 times. And that's what made him call the police and say, I think I killed my girlfriend. That makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense that he would be given immunity. Why wouldn't he be given immunity? Why wouldn't anybody be given immunity in that situation? Totally makes sense. Oh, it was an accident. I didn't mean to. Turns out boyfriend's Jay. They ended up trying to put it on a black guy. They tried to give him hate crime, all these other crazy charges. Nick, stop, dude. You obviously are, and I can hear you. They tried to give him everything they could give him. They actually had a J judge that the defense tried to get to recuse himself because he was clearly biased. But wouldn't happen. But they tried to get him with everything. They end up giving the guy, they find him guilty of lying to police and give him a sentence of 18 months to 25 years. Have you ever heard of that before? Heard of anybody getting a sentence of 18 months to 25 years just for lying to police? Even 18 months for lying to police, that's pretty significant. Chomos don't get much more than that. But when you think about how important the funerals are in those kinds of situations, that they override everything. And then you go look, do you see around 1,100 funerals taking place in Israel within the first couple days of October 7th? Show me. There would have to be tons of footage. There would be so much. How would anybody even begin to accommodate that? All the funeral homes possible. And the whole time that they were distracting you from that, because you never heard anybody talking about those 1,100 people. Their relatives were never interviewed. It was only about these supposed hostages that never existed. But that's where all the focus was over and over again, while Israel's acting like they don't really care what's going on with the hostages, almost like there's not really hostages, and just bombing indiscriminately everywhere. They could have been bombing the shit out of hostages for all they knew. But nope, never. Didn't work out that way. Just before the bombs would hit, the Hamas that were taking very good care of these hostages would move them. And then we're told at some point the Hamas leadership is asked about the hostages. How many hostages are left? What's going on here? And they say they have no idea. They don't know, because apparently they had dispersed the hostages throughout the neighborhoods, just giving them to random, Hamas sympathizer families. So they would have these J hostages at these people's houses, and they would have them doing horrible things like washing dishes. And they release these narratives that, again, I'm telling you, these are the dumbest people in the world. They think it makes them look bad, but nobody tells them, like, this is a read between the lines kind of thing. Sounds kind of fishy. They say that in one situation, one of them was punished and he had to lay in a bed for 2 days without speaking to anyone. He had to lay in a bed. So they're told, so they got beds. They at least get beds. Another time, one of the hostages was standing in front of an open window, and his punishment, or no, that was the guy. He was standing in front of the open window. The next guy, he washed his hands in the drinking water. So they have water that's set aside for washing hands, and then they have water that's set aside for drinking. And this piece of shit Jay decides to wash his hands in the drinking water. I mean, they should be grateful, right? They're going to get all that J inside them. But his punishment was that he had to lay in a bed with a bunch of blankets on him for a long time in the summertime. These are the punishments. These are the narratives that we get. One of the women that was hostage was made to wash dishes. And again, so they were clearly given blankets. They were clearly given beds. They were clearly able to walk around wherever they wanted to go. They didn't have bars on the windows if they're standing in front of open windows. And the thing is, nobody ever sees these hostages or knows these people have hostages until after the Israeli troops come in. And, clearly people dressed in fatigues and completely covered up go in, take the fatigues off, and then they come out as the hostages that nobody ever knew about. But these are the narratives that they give. They try to say, yeah, well, just because we're killing them, they're not doing bad things to us. They made a princess wash dishes. She had to wash dishes for people. These are the narratives that they get. Fucking insane. And then you go back to the first hostage release, right? The first hostage release was about 2 weeks after the initial thing. And it was this old lady who, when she was released, she turned around and shook the hand of her captor, like people do when they get released from being held hostage. And she was interviewed. And she said, that they weren't violent with them except for in the beginning. And she's an old lady, so you know how old people heal up really quickly, right? They don't get those bruises, tiny bruises that morph into huge strawberries. Nah. She was like, yeah, I had injuries, but they've all healed up by now. She said that they were given kosher meals, that they were treated well, and most importantly, that every elderly person had a doctor assigned to them to make sure they could get whatever medications they needed. That's what this woman is saying. While Israel is bombing the shit out of all of these innocent people, children are having to have amputations without any medications and all these things. These stories are just horrendous that are coming out of it. they're also taking care of these Jays more than they're taking care of their people. And at first they say, if Israel doesn't stop bombing us, we're going to start decapitating hostages on live TV and broadcasting it to the world. And Israel's response to that was, oh yeah? And they started bombing more. And then on day 50, there was the first mega release, which was, it was under the cover of darkness, and it was the Hamas would be on one side of the town while the Israelis were on the other side of the town, and then the Hamas with their carefully pressed in nice uniforms, all khaki uniforms with their balaclavas and their bright green headband, like, hey, you want to make a headshot, shoot here, headband. They would stand on either side of the two hostages as they would walk hand in hand from one cargo van to the other. And they did this over and over again until they got their 100 hostages. And there was literally no benefit at all. No benefit whatsoever for the Palestinians. They weren't going to stop. There was no reason for them to release all those hostages instead of killing them. But they did. Crazy part is, the week before, the media had gone to the little girl's house whose family was having a birthday party for her, even though she had been held hostage for 50 days. It was her birthday, and because it was her birthday, the news came to show that the family was still having a party for her. They didn't know she was alive or when she was coming out, but they were still going to have a party for her. The news covered the party, and her parents were flown all over the world to meet all kinds of people. They were pseudo celebrities over this. And it turns out that the very next week, one of the hostages is the little girl. It's the little girl who can only speak in whispers now. So when she's interviewed, and so they can maximize the cute effect while making sure the narrative still remains the same. Every question she's asked, she can only whisper. So they'll ask her about something that happens, and she'll whisper to her daddy, and then her dad will be like, well, she said, and you're going, didn't seem like she said that much. Seems like you're like reading a narrative. And then, of course, she just disappears. That story disappears. So we just find out that they're being taken well care of. Blah, blah, blah. Everything's good. They have their own medicine because you can't have them not have all their medicines. This Palestinian reporter, whose father is a well-respected community leader and a doctor, he writes a scathing narrative about what's going on in, maybe it's Al Jazeera, in something. The next day, the Israelis show up, they kick in the door. First, they shoot his wife in the head right in front of him. Then they shoot his father in the head right in front of him. Then they shoot him. And it's known because another relative had taken the children and hidden, and was retelling this narrative. And it also turns out that this is one of the houses that just happened to have hostages in it. And these were 3 of the 4 hostages that they killed some 270 some people to free these 400 some people. I can't remember what it was. To free these 4 hostages. That was the narrative. They killed all these people to free these hostages that nobody knew existed. None of the people in the community ever saw these people walking around the house. They weren't chained up. One of them got in trouble for standing in front of a window. Nobody knew they existed, but, after the troops went in, then hostages came out. Gee, that's so strange, isn't it? Doesn't that seem convenient? And it just happened to be the guy that just wrote a horrible article about Israel? Gee, that's weird. Like, I can just give you so many examples to back my side of this. I would love to hear your examples to back the other side. I would love to see the videos that show the Israelis in any sort of danger or fighting for their lives. Or I would love to see whatever evidence you have to show that Israel is the good guy. Because I just don't see that. And I'm not alone. There are lots and lots of people who have nothing to do with Middle Eastern anything, who only stand to lose by this because our society is controlled by the Jays anyway. And yet they're still speaking out against this shit. The mayor of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, dropped a bomb from a helicopter into apartments on live TV. Yes, he did. In the black neighborhood, of course. Definitely not in the J neighborhoods. That's in the black neighborhoods. In the USS Liberty, yes, sir. I always ask people to give me some evidence of how they're actually good. What do they contribute? What invention do they make? What good do they bring the world? It seems like it's usually some goyim invents it and then they steal it. But give me something good. Justify the idea that Israel is allowed to kill as many people as they want to because of whatever. Just give me just make that work. Egypt was built by pale people, and somehow everybody believes the J slaves did it. The Jays were the goldsmiths selling gold, not slaves. No hate other than hate for lies. Yeah, but it's okay though. The problem is you're allowed to hate a cult, man. This is a horrible cult. Why do we accommodate this? That was move. I don't know what that means. Oh yeah, move the group, right. Where is your yeah. But understand, like, this is why I keep trying to get you guys to watch Hollywoodism. Hollywoodism will tell you the truth. And Hollywoodism is a movie they made. That's what's so important about this. This is not some conspiracy. This is they made it. This is not some conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy, but they are flat out telling you the fucking truth. This is what we do. This is how we have manipulated everything to control everything. And they have used Hollywood to control everything. From our political perspective to our narrative on history to, how we view each other, everything is controlled by them through our media machine. And it makes sense. It's not even like it's a hard conspiracy to wrap your. Hollywood does fucking suck. And who controls Hollywood with a. I mean, this is what I mean. If I make the same video, I get told I'm pushing all these tropes, anti-Semitic tropes, and blah blah blah. That you hear all these standard pull cord responses. Nothing denying what's being said. More denying your right to say it. If I made it, it would be bad, but they make it. And they say literally everything. That they control it. They always have, they always will. It's nepotism. It's, it's passed down generation after generation. Like, why wouldn't they? Why would they have built this mega machine, this mega superpower, super money, super status machine, only to give it up to the goyim that they hate to begin with? That they blame for all of the problems because, the goy were so mean to them. And yet they somehow they escaped the pogroms. They escaped I love the beginning one where the old man is like, the pogroms that come, the people would run out of the houses and they would yell, whatever the name is, the wording is, but the hooligans are coming. The hooligans are coming. He would say it first, and then he would translate it to the hooligans are coming. And then he gets all emotional. Since my father and my oldest brother They grabbed the clubs and they went out swinging. And they fortunately came back, but a lot of them didn't. It's just so funny, such bad acting. You know, oh, they came back, they survived. Just like how everybody is like, oh, I'm a hoax survivor, I'm a hoax survivor, a hoax survivor. How? How did so many? I mean, there were only supposedly 8. Okay, so according to the World Census Report, which they control, there were 15 million Jays prior to the war, worldwide. 16 million Jays during the war, and 18 million Jays after the war. There's no account of 6 million or any number of them. They don't decrease during that time frame. According to them. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Did you guys know that the Red Cross was stationed all over the place during that time? And that there were no accounts of anybody being, cooked in the fucking ovens. It just didn't happen. The ovens were used to destroy the clothes that were, piling up, or the dead bodies. There were, but it's really simple. Like, supposedly the Nazis kept really good records of everything. And you can't just light some fires, get some wood and throw it in an oven and be able to cook people. Especially not people 3 deep. They stacked them 3 on a time. They had to adjust the narrative because it wasn't making sense. Oh yeah, no, they were 3 on a time. You need an incredible amount of energy to be able to do that. You need special gases and special materials that the Nazis would have had to. And the records of what they did import show that nearly enough to accommodate the feat that they say. I mean, it's just bullshit. Think about every piece of footage you've ever seen, right? All the liberation footage you've ever seen. Have you ever seen a piece of liberation footage, just one, where somebody came out of the thing and was like, yay, I'm so grateful to be free at last, blah, blah, blah. Or is it every single time you see people who are still fat? It's not like they're all gaunt and skinny. It's not like they match the pictures that you were shown that were actually gulag pictures that they just showed you. But you don't see a bunch of like horribly skinny people. Normally you see like 30 people, maybe even as many as like 100 people, all in the foreground. If you look in the background, you don't see anybody. But if you look in the foreground, you might see 100, but they're all walking in tow. None of them are fucking happy that they're getting released. Not a single footage. Not a single piece of footage shows you that. They never thought when they were faking all of that footage that they needed to, show some happy people. That wouldn't make sense that every single person would be super upset and depressed still. They would be happy. Being liberated, you'd be happy. And I love how everybody completely, glosses over the fact that that the Japanese internment camps, the exact same thing existed here in the States that we put the Japanese in. They weren't death camps. They were work camps. If you're planning on killing people, you don't build a bunch of barracks with heat, running water, electricity. You don't let them have their own money. You don't let them have theater groups and soccer teams and all that. You don't do that for people that you want to kill. The majority of the people that died because the supply lines were bombed to bejesus. And when you understand something like the Hannibal Doctrine, it kind of makes more sense than you think. Because the Israelis have something called the Hannibal Doctrine. Uh-oh, we have somebody flying the pedo flag. You're new. Well, you're not new, but you're new today. So fly it again, and you're removed. We don't tolerate the pedo flag here. So you're not only saying Jews are lying, but Polish people and Romanian people who were there are also lying about their experience. Well, I know my family is. And I know you're not really talking about a lot of people here. There aren't all these people that are saying this. And even if, you know, what you don't get is just how manufactured your narrative is. The fact is, there were a lot of Polish people and Romanian people and lots of people, but nobody talks about that. People only talk about how it's the Jays. It was only the Jays. Did you know that Whoopi Goldberg, one of the hosts on The View, obviously the lowest level host on The View, because Joy Behar is the number one, the big shit there. Somebody came on there and was talking about the Holocaust, and Whoopi said, well, the Jays weren't the only victims of the Holocaust. And Joy blew a fucking gasket. Whoopi got kicked off the show or suspended for like, I don't know how many episodes. I don't give a shit. I don't watch the show. And the only way she was allowed back was if she came in and apologized and retracted her statement, basically. And all she said was that there were more people than the Jays involved in the Holocaust. So you are going to fly it? Did you already fly it? Was that you? Yep, that is you flying the second time. All right. Bye. Telling you, I'm not cool with you guys doing that little secret communication bullshit on my page. So, you know, it's all bullshit. Yes, it's all bullshit. The fucking $1,000 checks that they all got for every fucking week or month of their life, whatever it was, that got passed down from one generation to the next, and people are still getting it. Like, it's all just bullshit. It really is bullshit. Why you would believe the narrative just because you were told to believe the narrative is beyond me. But I mean, I get it. We're not supposed to. You don't realize that you've been bombarded with distraction bullshit from the time you were born. Your stupid parents doing all kinds of little signs and shit over your head and doing all your Bible stuff, and you realizing like this must be really serious. This must be really important. You know? They've been conditioning you from a young age to be the cog in the wheel that you're supposed to be. Queers are my people, and if that makes you mad because race matters more to you, I'm sorry. You must not be talking to me. When you look at why gays are so hated in our society, again, go watch Hollywoodism. Hollywoodism is who made it that way. They controlled the perception of us. And it's funny because, you know, so many of them are you know, gay, practice homosexual stuff, whatever. For them to then be making, but they be the driving force behind the anti-homosexual movement, it just shows you that it's a distraction. That they know what a powerful distraction it is. So it doesn't matter because, first of all, they're not going to receive any of the discrimination. They can control the newspapers and all that, so their stories don't come out. You know, they're not worried about that like we would be worried about it. At least, especially in those golden years. But they also made it illegal. It was them who passed the production codes in the 30s that said gays weren't allowed to be used in any sort of capacity in Hollywood. So then the J studio owners had to go around and marry off their you know, The gay men with the lesbian women, and they would make these fake ass marriages. That's why so many of them had so many fake marriages. Because literally they passed the laws that made it illegal to begin with. And I don't know, the meaning just shows to go to a segment. What are you talking about? What's your thoughts on transgenderism, guy? There is no transgenderism. It's just people. I couldn't care less. I don't care what people do in their lives as long as they're not hurting anyone or fucking with children. And at the end of the day, this whole narrative about, oh, I'm just worried about the children. I'm just worried. If you were worried about the children, you'd probably attack the number one child violator, which is the church. But I don't see you saying anything about that shit now, are you? Mm-hmm. Transgender is nothing. I don't care. You want to live as a woman, you want to do whatever. I don't care. I'll play along. You want to be called this, you want to be called that. It just couldn't. There's so many more things like, Israeli genocide of innocent civilians that's important to me to try to stop than, being upset about, oh, I have to learn all these new pronouns. You mean like three? You have to learn these new words, or you just have to use them? Like it's so fucking stupid. You finally admit it. Admit what? What the fuck do I admit here that I haven't been admitting? I think it's all a big distraction. The fact there's a reason why June. You know why? Because generally May is when Passover happens. And during Passover, they love to kill a lot of civilians just for the fun of it. So every time the news should be talking about, this rise in Israeli murders that are happening, the murders of the Palestinians. Instead, it's dumb white people being upset because, oh, that goes against my Jesus, blah, blah, blah. It's just, it's so stupid. And then it's funny, too, because all you people, like, if you said, look, I think being gay is gross. And I don't want to be gay. I don't want to be gay. I'm not gay. That's fine. You can think being gay is gross. You know that gay people think that heterosexual sex is gross? Gay guys can't imagine why anybody would have anything to do with a vagina. They might like boobs, but vaginas, oh, no, no, no. So, you can think that shit's gross? You know what? I think people that fuck feet, I think fucking feet is gross. You know that a lot of people like fucking feet? Does that mean we should discriminate against them? No. And if you say, oh, I don't want to see it out in public. Oh, are you a big fan of watching men and women fool around in public then? Nothing more fun than being that third wheel, huh? While your friends are making them. That's fun to be around, right? You stupid? You realize how stupid you are? These arguments you make are just stupid. All you gotta say is, I don't like it. Okay, well, you're not supposed to like it. It's not for you. But does that mean other people can't? Does that mean other people shouldn't have the same rights you do? As long as you're not fucking with children and you're not hurting people against their will, I don't see what the problem is. Like, you could be hurting people if that's what they want. If people are into the fucking step on my cubes and shit. Again, if that's your thing, I don't get it, but go right ahead. Feet is weird. Exactly right. Lots of shit's weird. Butt sex is weird. Why is everybody... You know what's crazy to me? It's crazy to me how this generation is so into gangbangs. Why would you want that so badly? Other than you're probably gay and you know, you're basically having sex with your buddy. It's just there's a tube between you. Right? And that's what it is. You're going to put your shit in somebody else's gookie bookie? You kidding me? They do that to us. And that's the J controlled hip hop. It's the Jays that have given us these black guys that are the thugs like Tupac. Do you know that the only sex that you can confirm that Tupac had without a shadow of a doubt is when he was raping that girl in her butt while forcing her to give head to his buddy? That was what he got, you know. Somehow he got convicted of that and was still allowed to leave and then spit on the reporters. Got more famous for it, wearing his Red Wings jersey. But that's it. You know, all these gay guys that they've shown you and said, "Oh, these are the thugs." Oh, it just so happens that the style from prison that shows that you like to take it in the butt became the style that everybody wore, sagging their pants and shit. That's just a coincidence, huh? And the thing is, again, it's only because like I don't have a problem with gay anything. I just when it's tricked into things, like when that's what's happening, when you're forcing gay guys to play the thug role so that they can enjoy success, and saying that only this is allowed to exist, and then pushing this on us, like of course you're gonna get some weird style, you know, Tupac with his nose rings and his earrings. You know, for a while there, if you go look at late 90s, early 2000s style for hip hop, you want to talk about some fucking clowns, man. Big ass t-shirts that look like dresses. Or on the other side, the pimp motif. Oh, all, you know, my generation, you know, we thought pimps were the coolest thing. Pimp, you gotta have the pimp, you gotta have your top hat, you gotta have your cane, because the pimps are so cool, because they're the pimp. The pimps are the worst people in the fucking world, man. Pimps are disgusting, horrible people. And the way that they control their women is just atrocious. And a lot of those guys are gay. Who else could violate women like that? But because we live in a society where gay is such a problem or trans is such a problem, you then have all of these people that mistreat women. That find themselves, they have to pretend. Like I look at it from the other perspective. Like, look, can you imagine if you had to pretend to be gay? In order for me to be accepted by society, in order for me to live in everyday life without being in danger, you know, without having any problems, I have to pretend to be gay. I have to have a relationship with a guy. I have to have gay sex with that guy. We have to adopt children, I guess, because you can't have children. But like, I can't imagine how much would that fucking break your brain? You know, that's just so fucking. That's such an awful, hellish existence to me. That's my idea of hell. Being born gay and not being allowed to be it, so you have to pretend you're not, and have heterosexual sex with females even though you're gay. That would be awful. And that's how you have to look at it. Like when you try to look at gay guys or gay anything in a certain way, understand it. Just put yourself in the opposite situation and think about how awful that would be for you. And for me, like anytime somebody wants to bring the religious element into it, you just prove how stupid you are. You know, that just takes stupid to a whole new level. because you're probably going to mention like the Sodom and Gomorrah story or some shit, and that it really doesn't get any dumber than that. Sodom and Gomorrah is not against gays. Sodom and Gomorrah is like the poster child. Look at 3 in a row. Poster child for, hey, incest is good, child rape is good. Like, Sodom and Gomorrah is a horrible, horrible story, and it's crazy that people associate it with gay. Yep, here we go. We get it, dude. This is too much of a big boy conversation for you, but you want to be heard. Like, it always reminds me of like, I'm at a family function or whatever, and I'm talking to my brother-in-law, and we're talking about something has to do with like, government. You see what was happening and the this and that and the well, and we're sort of having this discussion, and like my 5-year-old nephew or my kid or whatever is 5 years old, and they're standing there, and you can feel them like looking at you, but you're having a conversation, and then you can tell the kid's just waiting and waiting and waiting. Thanks a lot. Waiting to jump into the conversation, but can't because they don't really understand anything that's being said. And then finally, when you mention something like money, and then there's a break, the kid goes, "Oh, I have money. I have money in my room, and I have $16, and I saved it all because I do chores, and mommy gives me money, and I've been saving, and I could buy a car because I have $16." And you're like, "Oh, right on, little man. That's great. Hey, can me and Daddy finish this conversation real quick, and then we'll come play with you, all right?" "Okay," and then they run off. That's what these comments are like to me. I get it. You can't really get involved in the conversation. You're not smart enough. I get it. That sucks. I wouldn't want to. That would make me uncomfortable too. But instead of still being that childish imp, why haven't you learned to shut up for a minute and maybe learn something, or take this and go look something up and try to have some sort of intelligent conversation? Why don't people do that? I just find it crazy. This is. I'm gonna say the same things I say to you guys all the time, man. Go look up Team Jorge. You'll see just a small example of how Israel controls social media. Just this one Israeli Black Ops organization has 30 to 40,000 bot profiles that they use to infiltrate whatever the fuck they want. It was exposed. It wasn't disbanded. It wasn't destroyed. It was just exposed. And he was bragging that he's been doing this for 20 years. And this just one. Imagine how many secret Black Ops organizations Israel and their 15 billion shekels per year that they get just from the United States alone. Imagine how many of these groups they have that can infiltrate all sectors of the of social media. They brag about it. And then you have Facebook and Zuckerberg bragging about how they were able to eliminate a couple of hundred bot profiles from the Philippines, or maybe 1,000 bot profiles in China. Just Team Jorge, which again, if I say Team Jorge, you're immediately going to go Israel, right? Team Jorge has 30 to 40,000 back in 2022. Never hear anything Facebook says about dismantling those profiles or those, combating that bot farm. And again, how many others are there? There has to be thousands of other companies and corporations that do the same shit. Look up the Samson Option, right? Schizophrenia is a mental disorder characterized variously by hallucinations, typically hearing voices, delusions, disorganized thinking and behavior, and flat or inappropriate effects. So, which voices am I hearing? And what delusions am I talking? Are we saying that Team Jorge is a delusion of mine? Is that the claim? And that I'm hearing voices. So when I go, okay, so when I go Google and I put Team Jorge into Google, and then Google pops right up with Team Jorge Wikipedia. And here, we'll read this to you. Because see, this is me. This is the voices in my head telling me this, apparently. Team Jorge is the name given to an outfit of Israeli contractors specialized in the use of malign cyber activities, including hacking, sabotage, and bot farm run social media disinformation campaigns to manipulate the outcomes of elections. Right? Well, if they can manipulate the outcomes of elections, do you think fucking with some random YouTube page is like they can't do that? Yeah, they can manipulate elections, but come on, dude. You think they could just manipulate a random YouTube video? No. One of the organization's primary tools is a software package called Advanced Impact Media Solutions, or AIMS. The group was exposed in February 2023, after an award-winning undercover operation by journalists from Israel and France as part of a consortium of investigative journalists coordinated by Forbidden Stories. The organization has been active since at least 2015 and boasts of having manipulated 33 presidential elections worldwide, many of them in Africa, and in 27 cases with successful results. Basically, the 2016 election that Russia was supposed to have infiltrated, even though there's no actual proof of it, no examples of it, nothing. You just have to trust the system. Well, here it tells you that Israel did it, right? Let's see. Well, let's keep going though, because I'm making all this up, dude. This is my schizophrenic delusions. The activities were revealed following a 2020 sting operation in Tel Aviv carried out by 3 undercover journalists who posed as prospective clients and filmed their interactions with Tal Hanan, the group's leader and former Israeli Special Forces operative, in which he explained the inner workings of the organization. Tal Hanan used the pseudonym Jorge when working with the hacking and disinformation group, which inspired the Team Jorge name. According to Tal Hanan, the group's leader, Team Jorge has existed for more than 2 decades and has been engaged in propaganda and disinformation activities in more than 30 countries. However, its first documented activity dates back to 2015. Their services have been available to government intelligence agencies.
Dad!
Yes.
I got a gold gun on board 1 of no reload.
Nice work, dude.
It's cool.
What is it?
It's like a fist gun, but it bounces and it comes back to you.
Oh yeah, I've seen that one.
It's really cool.
I'll come down in a second. I know you're going to use it for a little while, so I'll come down in a minute. Political campaigns and private companies that wish to covertly manipulate public opinion. So strange. I'm making all this up, guys. Look at me making all this up. And I don't give my sources.
He has to move. He wants the gun so bad, but I'm not giving it to him.
Okay, so stop. Just stop being buttholes. One of the organization's primary tools is a software package called AIMS, Advanced Impact Media Solutions. Can you go deal with that, please? The software automates centralized control of thousands of fake social media profiles on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Telegram, TikTok, and others. YouTube. A number of these profiles have blah, blah, blah. The group also employs hacking techniques to brute force accounts of potential victims. Gee, I wonder what we're experiencing here. Team Jorge's activities were revealed after a sting operation by 3 undercover journalists. Blah, blah, blah. They filmed Tal Hanen in Tel Aviv, which explained the inner workings of the organization. To test Jorge's abilities, the journalists tasked it with a disinformation campaign called R.I.P. Emmanuel, spreading a death hoax about a social media personality, Emmanuel the Emu. The hashtag was used in over 1,300 tweets, and a tweet from Emmanuel's owner saying he was not dead received millions of views. In conversations, Hanen boasted of having interfered in 33 presidential elections, 27 which had positive results for the faction that hired him. Hanen claimed responsibility for a 2019 cyber attack against the Central Elections Committee of Indonesia to make it look like it had come from China for political reasons. Media outlets, including Bloomberg, reported on the attack in March 2019, noting the probable Chinese-Russian origin of the interference, while an investigation by The Guardian noted that it was more likely the work of other hackers leaving a false trail, but Bloomberg reported it. He also claimed that Team Jorge interfered in the 2014 Catalan independence referendum, hacked the emails of the chief of staff of Trinidad and Tobago, and leaked a document to cause a political crisis, passed false information to an ABC journalist who influenced the 2012 Venezuelan presidential election against former President Hugo Chavez, ran a 2022 campaign claiming the Polisario Front had ties to Hezbollah and Iran, and another 2022 campaign defaming Ali bin Fatiaz al-Mari, the UN envoy combating corruption. The wider investigation involved journalists from 30 total outlets, blah, blah, blah. Hanen attended meetings involving Cambridge Analytica as early as 2014. Emails leaked to Guardian show that Team Jorge was then in contact with Cambridge Analytica. Remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal? No. In 2015 and 2017 over political campaigns in Africa and South America. The two organizations worked to manipulate the 2015 Nigerian election. The plan was to help get Goodluck Jonathan reelected by discrediting Muhammadu Buhari, but the campaign was unsuccessful. Gee, it's amazing how I am just making all of this up. Isn't it crazy? I'm really good at this, isn't it? During the undercover meeting with journalists in 2020, Hanen showcased his ability to hack into Telegram accounts of Dennis Atumbi, a digital strategist for William Ruto, during the 2022 Kenyan general election. Atumbi subsequently confirmed to the Star that his Telegram account had been infiltrated and that he had noticed increased activity in the run-up to the elections. Oh, Jesus Christ. Metizu of Radio France and Le Monde found that Team Jorge created various segments that Rachid Embarki, a French television presenter for BFM TV, a broadcaster had broadcast without editor approval, possibly on behalf of foreign governments. He was suspended in January 2023 during an inquiry by international investigative reportive teams. It was suggested to undercover reporters by a member of Team Jorge that the group was behind a BFM TV news report that discussed the effect of sanctions against Russian oligarchs on Monaco's luxury yacht industry. It was claimed that 10,000, but this was without basis. It was one of several reports at night by Embarki without the knowledge of the editorial team, planted by Team Jorge as news for hire and subsequently picked up on social media by the team's bots. So they plant the story, and then the bot picks it up and fucks with the algorithms and shares the story with everybody. So then everybody sees the story. On February 16th, India's Congress Party demanded a probe into the possible involvement or interference of Team Jorge into Indian elections, blah, blah, blah. See also Black Cube, Internet Research Agency, and the NSO Group. What's Black Cube? Black Cube is a private intelligence agency based in London, Tel Aviv, and Madrid. The company was founded in 2010 by former Israeli intelligence officers. Gosh, isn't that weird how it's like that same thing? Dan Zarilla and Avi Yanis. Its employees include former members of Israeli intelligence units. In the past, it supported Israel Defense Force activities. Black Cube provides intelligence, evidence, and advisory services in multiple jurisdictions, legal and white-collar crime cases. I mean, it's just more bullshit. How many of you guys know about the Pegasus software? Where this is an old tactic of theirs, but well, there's Project Nimbus. How many of you guys know about Project Nimbus? Oh, we have that guy is definitely a fucking pedo. We know that shit. The Project Nimbus is a multi-billion-dollar deal that Amazon and Google have with Israel. And the deal, part of it is that any portion of Israel, Israeli government, Israeli military, can use this software without Google or Amazon being able to step in and prevent it. So it just doesn't make any sense why Israel would have access to all of our Google accounts and Amazon accounts, but they do. So how many of you guys understand that Epstein is directly connected to Israel's formation? You guys think that's real? Epstein's girl, Ghislaine Maxwell, her dad, Robert Maxwell, is basically responsible for Israel, because if not for Robert Maxwell sneaking in airplane military support, the Air Force jets and components that were needed, Israel would have never had the superiority that they had in the Air Force and would have lost their position. Robert Maxwell is I mean, you directly have a connection between Epstein, Epstein's fortune, all that shit, and Robert like, it's just crazy. Robert Maxwell. So there's a software called Pegasus that now Israel has sold to the United States and multiple other countries. And it's the software that allows them to go into all of the government or whoever owns it can go into any cell phone, any electronic device that exists without that thing even being on. They can now access your technology through this Pegasus software. And of course, Israel gave themselves a backdoor, so anybody that bought that gave Israel a backdoor into all of that stuff too. But it's not the first time. Robert Maxwell actually sold something called the Promise software, PROMIS software, which was Robert Maxwell is alleged to have distributed a bugged version of a software, Promise, to a plethora of national governments and global financial institutions that enabled mass spying by the government of Israel. Promise Prosecutors Management Information System was a case management software developed by Inslaw. The software program was developed with aid from the Law Enforcement Assistance Administration to aid prosecutors' offices in tracking cases. Promise software was originally written in COBOL for use on mainframe computers. Later, a version was developed to run on 16-bit mini computers, such as Digital Equipment Corporation PDP-11. The primary users of this early version of the software were the United States Attorney's Office of the District of Columbia and the state and local law enforcement. So our government and our law enforcement, both the mainframe and 16-bit mini-computer versions of Promise were developed under LEAA contracts, and in later litigation, both INSLAW and DOJ eventually agreed that the early version of Promise was in the public domain, meaning that neither the institute nor its successor had exclusive rights to it. That is just insane. Conspiracy theories. The Inslaw affair generated a great deal of media attention at the time due to peculiar circumstances and implications surrounding it. At the time of his death, Danny Colasaro was attempting to link the Inslaw affair with the October surprise allegations, the Iran-Contra affair, and the Bank of Credit and Commerce International scandal into a grand unified conspiracy that he called the Octopus. That was at the time of his death, right? At the time of his death. In 2024, Netflix true crime documentary series American Conspiracy: The Octopus Murders was released about the 1991 death of Danny Colasaro. It focused on journalist Christian Hansen, who revisits Colasaro's work and questions whether Colasaro actually died by suicide. Of course he died by suicide. The program features interviews with Michael Ricconsutio, described by Rolling Stone as a tech prodigy turned drug manufacturer and government operative who drops kernels of truth between what sound like madman ravings. Also interviewed is journalist Cherry Seymour, who reported being shown a doctored version of the Zapruder film in which JFK appears to be assassinated by the Secret Service agent driving the car. Seymour interpreted this as an attempt to preemptively discredit her. Boy, it's interesting how this all comes together, but I'm sure it has nothing to do with anything Israeli. Affidavits created over the course of Inslaw affair state that Promise was then given or sold at a profit to Israel, and as many as 80 other countries by Dr. Earl Bryan, a man with close personal and business ties to then President Ronald Reagan and then presidential counsel Edwin Meese. Investigative journalist. Well, this is even after Robert Maxwell has sold and given Promise software to all the people. So this is later. Investigative journalist Nathan Baca's Emmy-winning series The Octopus Murders featured documents from the archives of Ricosinatiul. These documents have been subject to interest for recent reopened cold case homicide investigations. In addition to Colasario's death, the deaths of various individuals with links to the Inslaw affair have been tied to the Clinton body count conspiracy theory. Jesus Christ, it all just comes. So it's funny how all these individual theories, once you start shaking out all the fucking shit, all the, you're mining for the gold, you only end up with a few little pieces of gold, and it's always the same pieces of gold.
Right.
It always shows the same fucking things. Get the fuck out of here, man. True crime documentary television series about the 1991 death of Danny Colasario amid conspiracy theories of a supposed international cabal that he labeled the Octopus. The firm follows director Zachary Trietz and his friend, journalist Christian Hansen, as they investigate the Colasario case. The film was released on Netflix as a 4-part docuseries on February 18th, 2024. Now, why do you think that was? Why do you think it's allowed to exist? Because they want you to know what they're capable of and that it doesn't matter. Can't do anything about it. Go ahead. We'll allow this to exist. Because you're too dumb. You dumb goyim are just too dumb to know anything about it. The documentary explores an investigation led by Danny Colasario in what he termed the octopus, a supposed conspiracy theory involving the U.S. government and its covert operations and the circumstances around him being found deceased in a hotel room. The film discusses the Inslaw's Promise software conspiracy theories and the Iran-Contra affair and the 1980 October surprise theory. Researcher Christian Hansen revisits Colisario's work and questions whether Colisario actually died by suicide. Hansen plays Colisario in the film's reenactments. The film features interviews, don't give a shit. Interviews with Michael Rizzo, described by Rolling Stone as a tech prodigy madman. We're going to copy and paste this. Tech prodigy turned drug manufacturer and government operative who drops kernels of truth between what sound like madman ravings. An interview is also interviewed as journalist Sherry Seymour, who reportedly showed a doctor version of the Zapruder film, which blah, 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 blah. That's it. That's the end of it. That's all you get. Danny Colisario. Let's see if they have anything more about him. June 16th, 1947 to August 10th, 1991 was an American freelance writer who came to public attention in 1991 when he was found dead in a bathtub in a room 517 of the Sheraton Hotel in Martinsburg, Virginia. His wrist slashed 10 to 12 times. The medical examiner ruled the death a suicide. A Netflix documentary series is centered around it. His death became controversial because his notes suggested he was in Martinsburg to meet a source about the story he called the octopus. Imagine before, like, this is what you had to do before there was an internet. You had to go put yourself in all these dangerous situations. This centered on a sprawling collaboration involving an international cabal. Isn't it weird how it just happens to be the same thing? It's not like it's an international cabal involving, you know, a crazy, weird tribe and a Japanese corporation. And it's never that. It's always the same shit. And primarily featuring a number of stories familiar to journalists. Is there something being cooked? Who worked in or around Washington, D.C.? Yeah, go. In the 80s, the Inslaw case about a software manufacturer whose owner accused the Justice Department of stealing its work product, the October surprise theory, that during the Iran hostage crisis, Iran deliberately held back hostages to help Ronald Reagan win the 1980 president election. Isn't that kind of like how the Hamas deliberately held back hostages until the day after Trump came into office, and suddenly all the hostages are getting released because of the ceasefire that doesn't exist? Right? The ceasefire, basically what they did was they removed what they said were the hostages, so now they can just do the carpet bombing without having to explain how they know they're not killing their own hostages, right? Now they can just do their to without that cloud hanging over it. Featuring a number of stories familiar to journalists who worked in and around Washington, D.C. in the 1980s, the Inslaw case about a software manufacturer whose owner accused the Justice Department of stealing his work, his product, Iran, blah, 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 blah. Right. The collapse of the okay. Talked about Iran deliberately holding back hostages to help Ronald Reagan win the election. The collapse of the Bank of Credit and Commerce International and the Iran-Contras. Colisario's family claimed that he was murdered. They state that before he left for the maintenance Martinsburg, he told his brother that he had been receiving harassing phone calls late at night, that some of them were threatening, and that if something were to happen to him while in Martinsburg, it was not be an accident. Well, no, he was just depressed and killed himself in the bathtub. They also cited his well-known squeamishness and fear of blood tests. They stated they found it incomprehensible that if he were going to kill himself, he would do so by cutting his wrist a dozen times. A number of law enforcement officials also argued that his death deserved further scrutiny, and his notes were passed by his family to ABC News and Time Magazine, both of which investigated the case, but no evidence of murder was ever found. I'm done. My throat hurts. I can barely talk. You don't know how much this takes out of me. But, you know, I'm sitting here making all this shit up. What I do is after I leave here, I go through. And not only do I make the things up, then I make up like the individual rabbit holes that I go down when I click on the blue and I click on the character or I click on the story or whatever. That seems like I had no idea where I was going. I made it all up. So go get your free download, www.the-bilderberg-group.com. I'm also leaving a link to Hollywoodism, and I'll leave a link to our Facebook page, one of our songs, so you can check it all out. It's all free. Well, have a good day. Do good things. Super Bowl tomorrow. Don't forget that shit. Pedophiles, kill yourself.